I know you're gonna dig this.
Hello and welcome to panDOMonium. Independence Day Resurgence has just come out in cinemas and has had mixed reviews from everyone. For me, it feels more like Independence Day Rehash, as it covers a lot of the same ground from the first film back in 1996. I also thought it, lots of other similar style words, but I'll come to those later. The first thing you want to know is this film worth going to see on the big screen? Yes is the answer. The plot may feel about as well structured as a Channel 5 TV movie of the week, and there's an overall lack of passion to the proceedings, with it being played too much for laughs. But some of those laughs are big ones, and I was glad to catch it sooner rather than later. And catch it you should. I saw this film on Thursday, the day of release, the very day you'd expect it to be at its most busy. I last did this with X-Men Apocalypse. I was the first one in, and was eventually joined by about 20 others. This one? Well, I took my seat next to Nigel Farage. He just wouldn't shut up moaning. Bloody immigrants coming over here, blowing up our landmarks. They always go for the landmarks. No, of course he wasn't there. Unfortunately, nobody else was either. Yes, I was in there on my own, on opening day, at 3 p.m. I know there'd been a few earlier screenings, including a midnight one, but the last time I was in a cinema on my own was in 1994 watching Gina Davis and James Gandolfini in the much underrated Angie. That was an indie film with a very small budget. Well, this is a sequel to one of the biggest hits towards the end of the last century, and with a budget of $165 million. This film deserves way better than that. It's certainly more fun than the overlong and ponderous Captain America Civil War, the way too serious Batman vs Superman Dawn of Justice, and the overhyped and mostly humourless Jurassic World. That makes me realise that when I said earlier that Resurgence is played too much for laughs, I shouldn't complain for it being too silly, since, compared to what's gone before, some levity is required. And brevity too. Roland Emmerich let 2012 bang on for over 2.5 hours. Okay, so there was a lot of ground to cover with that one, literally, as it showed events from around the world. But the first Independence Day film also passed a similar amount of time. This one? A straight 2 hours. It didn't need more. Please can more filmmakers take note. Because I can't think of a single blockbuster from the last few years running over 2 hours that didn't need anywhere from 20 to 40 minutes taking out of it. This one? Very little. Some cast members, yes, but for the running time, very little. Michael Bay especially, take note. Taking place on the 20th anniversary of the first attack, over the intervening time, the world has become a better place. The alien tech left behind has helped boost the military's weaponry, and there's been no more wars anywhere on the planet as a result of the world putting aside their differences after what was declared the Great War of '96. Blimey, who'd have thought there was a solution to those loonies in ISIS? Giving a nod to the possible outcome later this year, the US has a female president, but for the rest of the cast who have more of an impact, those who return are led by Jeff Goldblum as David Levinson, his character now some great leading expert in all things world friendly after Alien butt kicked. But it just feels like he's another character along for the ride, given how sloppily it's been written. After NASA loses contact with their base on Saturn and they suspect something's going on, Bill Pullman's former President Whitmore knows the aliens are coming back because they're still in his head. And it also looks like he's suffered at least one stroke along the way, which makes it look like at least one of the film's later events just looks completely preposterous during a film where events do come across as quite plausible if we ever did suffer an alien invasion. Micah Monroe is Whitmore's daughter, Patricia, a former fighter pilot, but who gave it up to look after Pops after he went doolally. She's also the girlfriend of Jake, Liam Hemsworth, who's acted off the screen by the fact that I couldn't help noticing he's a bit boss-eyed. Yes, his performance, it really is that gripping. He's partnered with Dylan Hiller, Jesse T. Usher, son of Will Smith's character from the first film. Will Smith isn't here. Why? I'll come to that later. Cast aside the dead weight and get back to the best person in this film, Brent Spiner returning as Dr. Okun. Yes, he didn't die in the first film, but then they never said he did. He's been in a coma for the past 20 years, and just as Whitmore's affected by the alien's return, so they've also made Okun spring back to life. Spiner also gets a lot more screen time this time round, providing most of the laughs, and all the better for it. Also back is Judd Hirsch as David's father, Julius, the actor being just 18 years Goldblum's senior. So that's just about possible, certainly more so than Sean Connery was to Harrison Ford in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, as there's just under 12 years difference between them. There's no time to play chess this time though, as before he gets more involved in the goings-on, we first see him eking out his 15 minutes of fame from '96 by giving talks to promote his book, How I Saved the World, despite being reduced to only getting bored audiences in care homes. William Fichtner deviates not at all from his usual acting path as Army Bod General Adams, while Charlotte Gainsbourg continues to prove she can't act her way out of a paper back, and her character, Catherine Marceau, is entirely redundant, and also off-screen a lot of the time, so when she returns, you'd forgot she was ever in it. I can't understand why anyone ever hires her. Every character she ever plays is a wishy-washy airhead who looks like she couldn't care less whether the world prospered or exploded. Robert Loggia is also back, very briefly. He sadly died last year, but has as brief a cameo as possible. In fact, his character looks CGI'd in, and badly, like Hayden Christensen's Anakin Skywalker when the remastered Star Wars Episode 6 Return of the Jedi was released. But his character was meant to be shimmering. Loggia wasn't. Vivica A. Fox also returns as mother to a fighter pilot's son and wife to another off-screen fighter pilot. But my favourite cast member on screen is the beyond gorgeous Angelababy, another fighter pilot looking for retribution against the alien hordes. Her character is Rain Liao. I misread the end credits scrolling up the screen, partly down to View's insistence at switching the lights back on when the end credits begin, and up to full brightness, so you can barely read what's on screen. I thought her character was actually called Rain Lad, which is normally what you'd expect a Geordie farmer to insist upon after a rare heatwave in the northeast. However, like any new characters in this film, I only learned of their names when the end credits rolled, since A, you rarely get to hear them named during the film, and B, it doesn't matter one jot what they're called. They're defined by their actions, e.g. nerdy businessman and sword-wielding angry man, and whether or not they're boss-eyed, of course. Still, despite any casting issues, Emmerich plays to his strengths by getting some good and semi-regular laughs out of those who can deliver the goods. So, the plot. Well, the aliens are coming back, but then you knew that already, and the humans have to find a way to put a stop to it by making up all their plans on the hoof. In a 2-hour movie, it feels like about 25 minutes in before Roland Emmerich switched on the special effects machine. Once the aliens started attacking, the mothership soon came along and was so big it has its own gravity, sucking everything up like the simple brains of Republican members of the Senate trying to deny a vote on gun control. However, rather than think up all new scenarios, jokes and lines, Emmerich & Co. have just repeated many previous ones. To ape the title of the sequel, the situation is very Independence Day remiss of them. In fact, I could also apply Independence Day repeat. If I wanted to go for a long title, I'd say Independence Day regurgitation, in keeping with the long subtitle of this sequel. That sounds a bit too tight on it. I mean, worse still would be Independence Day reflux, or even Independence Day acid reflux. But overall, I'm going to go for Independence Day rehash. 3 they couldn't use have been taken by other sequels: Universal Soldier The Return, Alien Resurrection, and Resident Evil Retribution. Like I said, the plot has issues. The original Independence Day built up slowly and brilliantly. This one doesn't. It borrows too much from the first film. Liam Hemsworth takes his turn to punch an alien square in the face. Hitler Jr. also gets to ape his dad by repeating, "It's the 4th of July, let's show him some fireworks." Plus he also makes a close encounter remark. Someone else also has to wait for a dog to shift their backside, like Boomer in the first film. And, slight spoiler if you care about that sort of thing, but not majorly, Bill Pullman flies a plane again. The only repeated line that really works is Dr. Okun declaring that the aliens aren't screaming, they're celebrating. As for why, you'll have to watch the film. Something that's not been done before, here, comes when an alien is seen in a vehicle's rear view mirror, with Jeff Goldblum looking at it, like Sam Neill did with the T-Rex in Jurassic Park, another big franchise in which Goldblum starred. And when you have the good guys chasing after a certain alien, or indeed being chased by them, it feels like the film should be playing Stop the Pigeon from Wacky Racers in the background. Given how 3D wasn't the in thing when the first film was released, Roland Emmerich has put it into position with this sequel. Alas, there's too much close-up 3D which doesn't really work, I thought it was because I was sat too close to the screen, but as there was no one else in the room, I was able to try a few rows back. No, it was still the same. It's the little things, like when we're looking into the cockpit of a fighter plane. The main characters are in the midground, while the barrier at the top of the stairs going into the cockpit is right at the front of our vision. It really jars. If you do the 3D well, it works great, a la Life of Pi, with the lad pointing that stick at the tiger. However, Independence Day Resurgence wasn't shot in 3D, so it's all converted in post-production. Scenes of the alien mothership are great, but other than that, there's not a lot that's necessary. So if you see it in 2D, you're missing nothing major, and you'll get the idea from basic perspective. All that said, after about 30 minutes, Emmerich seemed to give up with that aspect, and just concentrated more on the mid to background stereoscopy. Oh, and the alien queen looks pretty good in 3D when it's briefly suiting up its armour. Thankfully there's no time for a cheesy speech in this film, and one line from the trailer, oddly, isn't even in the film. The one where Liam speculates regarding the alien's arrival. "Should we be worried?" With Goldblum replying, yeah. Overall, this movie is quite an average sequel. It's nowhere near as bad as RoboCop 2 or Men in Black 2, but more on a par with Tron Legacy. It also hints at the possibility of a threequel. So, will they crowbar Revolution or something else equally uninspiring into the title? Well, The Matrix and Step Up both tried that, and neither were exactly heralded as the next Citizen Kane. So, as I said earlier, the fate of Will Smith's character, what was it? Well, unless I missed something, we were never told. Beforehand, I saw a discussion about it on the Internet Movie Database, and one guy told me beforehand that he was wanting to know what happened to him. The trailers made it out as if he had died, but I just thought the film would expand upon that, but no, not at all. I assume Will Smith was busy filming Suicide Squad. According to Roland Emmerich in a Metro interview, Smith was committed to a trilogy of After Earth films, and so wasn't available for this film. There's also speculation that he'd asked for $50 million, and then was turned down for that. And anyway, as we know about After Earth, that film bombed big time, so there's certainly going to be no trilogy of that. If you're the kind of person who waits around for a post-credit sequence, is there one? No. Will there be a third film in the series? Well, as I say, there's certainly scope for a threequel, but there were less people in the auditorium than the turnout of the average by-election. So really, don't hold your breath.